He had everything: wealth, power, and the arrogance that came with it. To the world, Adrian Cole, the millionaire CEO, was untouchable. But in the quiet corners of his empire, he carried one wound that no amount of money could heal: her refusal. 3 years ago, Alina Hart, a woman who lived on her own terms, looked him in the eye and said, "You can't buy love, Adrian." He had laughed then, confident she'd come back. But she never did, until fate brought them face to face again, not in a boardroom, but in a charity shelter he secretly funded, where she now worked, smiling without him. For the first time, Adrian realized that all his wealth couldn't silence the ache in his heart, because the only thing he ever truly wanted was the one woman who refused to be bought. City was alive with noise, the kind of hum that only comes from ambition, greed, and neon-lit dreams. Inside the tallest glass tower of Cole Enterprises, Adrian Cole stood at the window, hands in his pockets, eyes fixed on the skyline. He'd just closed another billion-dollar deal. The media called him the Golden CEO, but standing there, with the world at his feet, he felt nothing. Success had become a soundless echo. His assistant entered softly. "Sir, the gala tonight, the board wants you to give the keynote." He nodded mechanically. These nights were all the same: champagne, hollow smiles, and people who loved his power more than the man behind it. That night, the ballroom glowed gold. Music, applause, cameras. Adrian played his part, until his gaze froze across the room. In a simple black dress, stood Alina Hart. 3 years hadn't dulled her fire. She was still that woman with quiet defiance in her eyes, the one who had refused his money, his charm, and his pride. Adrian had met her during a property deal. She had been representing a small community resisting his corporation's expansion. He had admired her confidence, her strength, and hated how icily she saw through his arrogance. He had tried to buy her silence. She had smiled and said, "You think everything has a price, except your own soul." That night, she had walked away, and something inside him broke. Now she was here, radiant, self-assured, and completely untouched by the world that revolved around him. "Adrian Cole," she greeted, voice calm. "Didn't expect to see you supporting a charity event." He smirked. "I'm full of surprises." Her lips curved slightly. "Only when you want something." The words hit harder than she knew, because for the first time in years, he didn't want to win, he wanted to understand. Throughout the night, he watched her, how she spoke to everyone with genuine warmth, how people leaned in when she smiled. She had what his empire could never give him: peace. When the event ended, he found her near the exit. "Dinner?" he asked quietly. She shook her head. "I don't mix with people who treat others like deals." He hesitated, something unfamiliar burning in his chest. "Maybe I've changed." Her eyes softened, but only for a moment. "Maybe, but not enough." She walked away again, leaving him in the echo of music and regret. That night, Adrian didn't go home. He drove through the sleeping city until dawn, haunted by the sound of her voice. The next morning, he called his team. "Find out where she works." It was an obsession, it was a longing he didn't understand. He discovered that Alina now ran a community shelter in the old part of town. No press, no luxury, just purpose. A week later, he went there under the guise of corporate donation. The building was small but full of life, laughter, children's drawings, the smell of bread and coffee. Alina looked up as he entered, disbelief in her eyes. "You don't belong here, Adrian." "Maybe that's why I came," he said softly. She crossed her arms. "You think throwing money at this place will make up for the lives your company ruined?" He swallowed hard. "No, but maybe it's a start." For the first time, she saw something real in him, not the cold businessman, but a man trying to remember who he once was. As days turned into weeks, Adrian kept visiting. No cameras, no publicity, just quiet help, fixing lights, donating anonymously, listening. And slowly, walls began to fall. One evening, after the shelter closed, they shared tea on the rooftop. The city lights shimmered below. Alina said softly, "You're not the same man I met." He smiled faintly. "I'm still learning who that man should be." She looked at him, truly looked, and for the first time, saw the cracks beneath his perfection. And in that silence, something began to heal, not between a CEO and a woman, but between two souls who had once collided and now found themselves walking toward forgiveness. The winter sun filtered through the frosted windows of the shelter as Adrian stood in silence, watching Alina laugh with a child. Her laughter was light, unguarded, the kind that belonged to someone who'd made peace with her past. He envied that peace. "Coffee?" she asked, noticing his stare. He smiled. "Only if you made it." Her brow arched. I don't make coffee for CEOs. Then I'll make it for you. She blinked, half surprised, half amused, as he awkwardly handled the small kettle. He wasn't used to anything that didn't involve assistants and luxury machines. The sight made her laugh again, and for a fleeting second, they felt like two normal people. Over the next few weeks, the shelter became their meeting ground. He repaired doors, painted walls, helped serve meals. People whispered about the rich man who worked like a volunteer, but Adrian didn't care. Alina noticed the change. He listened more. He smiled differently, softer, humbler. But part of her resisted trusting him. "Why are you really here?" she asked one evening. "People like you don't just wake up wanting to help." He looked at her, eyes steady. "Because for years I thought I had everything, but I never had peace. You made me see that." Her heart softened, but fear lingered. "I'm not something you can fix or own, Adrian." "I don't want to own you," he whispered. "I just want to be worthy of standing next to you." For the first time, she had no reply. But life, as it always does, decided to test them. That same week, a scandal hit the news. One of Adrian's business partners was exposed for embezzlement. And suddenly the headlines screamed, "Coal enterprises linked to corruption." Cameras swarmed. Reporters camped outside his office. The man who'd rebuilt his image was being dragged back into the mud. Alina saw the news on TV in the shelter. She felt an ache, not of pity, but of conflict. She'd seen his change, but could she really trust it? That night, he didn't come, nor the next. 3 days later, he appeared at the shelter, unshaven, eyes tired. "I didn't do it," he said simply. "I know," she replied softly, "but the world doesn't." He sat down, head in his hands. "All I ever wanted was to prove I'm not the man they think I am, but I can't outrun my past." Alina placed a hand on his shoulder. "You don't have to outrun it. You just have to stop letting it define you." Her words hit deeper than any boardroom negotiation ever had. A week later, something unexpected happened. The shelter received an anonymous donation large enough to secure funding for years. The note attached read only, "For every soul that teaches me what money cannot buy." Alina knew it was him, but said nothing. That night, the shelter held a small dinner to thank donors and volunteers. The room glowed with laughter and gratitude. Adrian stood in the corner, unnoticed, watching Alina smile, not at him, but at the people she helped. He realized that love wasn't about winning someone back. It was about standing beside them, even when no one was watching. When Alina finally noticed him, she walked over quietly. "You still think you can fix everything with money?" He shook his head. "No. I think I finally understand what it's worth and what isn't." She smiled faintly. "Good, because the world doesn't need another savior. It needs someone real." He looked into her eyes, the same eyes that once refused him, and whispered, "Then I'll just be real." In that moment, there was no CEO, no charity worker, no past, just two hearts, one learning to love without possession, the other learning to forgive without fear. Spring came quietly, soft rain, fresh air, and a sense of renewal. The scandal had faded. The truth cleared Adrian's name. But something inside him had shifted forever. He spent less time in boardrooms now, more in the world outside his glass walls. Every weekend he came to the shelter fixing things, teaching kids, helping quietly, not because of Alina, but because of who he'd become through her. But deep down, he knew she still kept her heart guarded. One evening, Alina found him outside painting the shelter's new sign. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, his hands smeared with paint. He looked nothing like the man she'd once known. "You don't have to keep proving yourself," she said softly. He smiled. "I'm not proving anything. I just like being here." She hesitated. "You'll get bored. Men like you always do." He turned to her, eyes steady. "Then maybe I'll spend the rest of my life surprising you." Her lips curved, but she stayed silent. Later that week, a storm hit the city. Fierce, relentless. The shelter's roof began leaking, water flooding in. Adrian rushed there in the middle of the night, soaked and shivering, helping move supplies, carrying children to safety. Alina watched him, this man who once lived for luxury, now kneeling in muddy water, saving strangers without hesitation. When the chaos settled, she walked to him. He was sitting on the floor, exhausted, rain dripping from his hair. "Why do you keep doing this?" she asked quietly. He looked up, eyes raw with emotion. "Because when I almost lost everything, I realized the only thing that ever mattered was you." Tears filled her eyes. "You don't need to say that." He shook his head. "I don't say it to make you love me. I say it because it's true." The power went out. The room was lit only by candlelight. She reached out slowly, touching his face, a gesture of forgiveness, more powerful than any words. In that silence, surrounded by the people they had both helped, something unspoken passed between them, a promise of love built not on wealth, but on understanding. Weeks later, the shelter reopened, newly repaired, stronger than before. Alina stood on the rooftop one evening, watching the sunset. Adrian joined her quietly. "You rebuilt the roof," she said softly. He chuckled. "We rebuilt it." She turned to face him. "You really did change." He smiled gently. "No, Alina, you changed me. I just finally started listening." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she whispered, "Maybe it's time we both stopped running from what we feel." He stepped closer, his voice low. "So what now?" She looked up at him, eyes shining. "Now we start again. Not as the man who had everything, but as the one who finally learned what to cherish." The city lights shimmered below, but for once, Adrian didn't look at them. He looked only at her, the woman who had refused to be bought, and in doing so, had given him something priceless, himself. And as the night settled softly around them, he knew that no fortune, no empire, and no success could ever equal the simple, sacred feeling of her hand in his. Love doesn't always arrive wrapped in perfection. Sometimes, it comes when the masks fall, when power fades, and only the heart remains. Adrian had spent his life buying everything, until he met the one woman who refused to be bought, and through her, he finally discovered what real wealth meant: compassion, humility, and love that money could never measure. Because the richest hearts aren't the ones that own the world, they are the ones brave enough to give it away. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more cinematic tales of love, redemption, and second chances. Your one click helps us bring more powerful stories to life. Stay tuned. The next story might just remind you that some hearts can't be bought, only found.